It's a summer's day in 2012, and I'm working on a community volunteering project with my team from work. I'm painting a room in a small rundown house, and my boss Chris walks in and picks up a brush. The two of us chat back and forth for a while before the conversation takes a turn in a more personal direction. "Hey, what's your girlfriend's name?" he asks. Alana. And what does she do? And how long have you guys been together?" His questions keep coming, and I do my best to respond to them, but my heart is beginning to beat faster and faster. Why? Well, because my partner's name is not Alana, it's Alan. And in responding to Chris's questions, I'm growing this complex web of lies to disguise Alan and my sexual orientation from the view of my colleagues. And it's tough to keep up. Have I answered that question before? And am I saying something now which contradicts the things that I've said in the past? It's honestly exhausting. But this is what would run through my mind every time anyone would ask me a personal question at work. Even something as innocuous as, "Hey, how was your weekend?" would send a shiver up my spine. Well, it doesn't take much to understand that this left me feeling like an outsider at work. In addition to that, it caused my productivity to plummet. After all, I was spending so much time and energy trying to keep this secret that there was little energy left for me to deliver at work. Furthermore, I was throwing up these barriers between my colleagues and I avoided building any personal relationships with them at all. This is why it's important for us to talk about inclusion and how we as leaders can foster inclusive working environments for our teams. But what exactly do I mean by that? Well, an inclusive working environment is one in which everyone feels respected and connected to each other. Simple as that. Now, there's an ever-growing body of evidence which shows that LGBTQ people who do not feel included in the workplace are less productive and are at greater risk of leaving. Furthermore, companies that do not appear to be inclusive from the outside struggle more to recruit LGBTQ talent. And to give you a sense of the numbers here, by some estimates, there are as many as 16 million LGBTQ people in this country's workforce alone. 16 million. Now, I'm a Kiwi, and granted, New Zealand's a small country, but that's like 4 times our population. Like, that's a big number. In 2016, after I'd come out at work, I was building up an LGBTQ employee network there. And I approached our security team to ask them whether they were factoring in LGBTQ considerations into their risk assessments of new country entries. You see, I worked in the oil and gas industry, and many of the countries that my company was looking to move into held particularly hostile views toward LGBTQ people. Well, that question led our security team to realize that they were sending, or were at least trying to send, LGBTQ people to countries that criminalize homosexuality with punishments of jail time and even death. Now, as a leader, can you imagine coming to that realization? The realization that your actions or the decisions that you have made could unwittingly have put one of your team members at risk. That's a scary thought. Now, in front of me today, I see a bunch of young, aspiring leaders. I see people who are going to have to deal with challenges like this in the future, and who will be leading some of those 16 million LGBTQ Americans and countless others from around the world. And while it's easy for us as leaders to focus on the hard numbers in business, if we truly want to develop healthy, high-functioning, cohesive teams, then it's our responsibility to focus on inclusion. So I'd like to leave you with 3 challenges today. My first challenge to you is be mindful of the signals that you are sending. Let's rewind a bit to the story I told you about Chris and I. When Chris spoke to me about my partner, he used the word girlfriend. It was a phrasing he probably didn't think twice about, but it left me feeling as though I couldn't be open with him. As though he had some kind of predetermined ideal for what a team member in his team would look like, and that was a mold that I just didn't fit into. Had Chris simply used the word partner, or something of that nature, it would have made me feel much more comfortable in that moment. My second challenge to you is have the courage to make mistakes. When I came out to a colleague at work a couple of years ago, his first words to me were, "Yeah, I thought so." He then went to Google and typed in what to do when someone at work comes out to me, and "yeah, I thought so" was one of the top things that Google said not to say. But hey, I brushed it off, and he didn't allow it to discourage himself. Instead, he used it as an opportunity to learn, and now, when I ask how he would respond to a similar situation in the future, his response is a simple, "I appreciate you opening up to me," and that's a great start. My third challenge to you today is lead with empathy. Now, just for a second, I want everyone in this room to think about your deepest, darkest secret, something that no one else in the world knows. I want you now to think about what it would feel like to tell someone that secret for the very first time. Your heart is absolutely racing, and your palms are sweating. It's literally a fight or flight response. This is how it felt for me to come out to my manager back in 2014. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes of those who follow you and to think about how they perceive you as a leader. Do you lean into emotional situations like this and look for an opportunity to connect, or do you shy away? Are you open and approachable, someone to whom your team members can really talk about anything, or are you closed off? Now, I'll admit, it's easy for me to stand up here and offer you these challenges in the liberal enclave that is the Bay Area, and that there are some parts of the world where I could be prosecuted for just giving this talk. While I think it's important for us all to exercise sound judgment, I want to remind you of one thing. Being inclusive is simply about making people feel respected and connected. And how you achieve that is essentially the same, regardless of whether you've got someone in your team who is LGBTQ identifying or whether there's something else that makes them unique. When I step back and I put myself in Chris's shoes back in 2012, I can see that he was just doing what felt natural to him at the time. But as leaders, we need to prioritize inclusion and put the needs of our team members first. So I challenge you to be mindful of the signals that you are sending, to have the courage to make mistakes, and to lead with empathy, all in an effort to create healthy, high-functioning teams and organizations. So my question to all of you now is, are you all up for the challenge? Thank you.